to Monday Mug Mentions, week number 35. We are 35 weeks into this awesome segment where we talk about things that are interesting in the tabletop industry over the course of a cup of coffee. So good to see you all this week. You know what? I just realized I forgot to add something. So I will add that right now. But I was granted a bunch of coffee this week for this week's show. So let me grab that image for you and put it up there. There we go. So our coffee contributor this week is Carol Ann Britt, aka Mom, known as the woman who puts up with me since I was born. So yeah, thank you, Mom. I really appreciate it. And today I am drinking a cup of the Independence Coffee Company. All three of these are Independence Coffee Company from Texas. Mom can tell you exactly where they are. I forgot. Brenham, Texas. Okay. So, these are pretty tasty. The one I'm drinking now I'll talk about in a second. I want to catch up with the comments. Hello, Daniel, Stephanie, Mom, Courtney, my beautiful, wonderful, awesome wife, John, Alex, good to see you. Yuri, good to see you. Jennifer, so good to see you. Thank you all for joining me today. John, good to see you. So good to see you all today. Daniel is traveling to Essen. Many of you are probably traveling to Essen, Germany for Essen Game Fair and Essen Spiel. Enjoy. Have a good time. Travel safe. It is a long travel, I know, for many of you. So hopefully it goes well and is smooth and is as good as it can be. So let's get into it because we only have about 25 minutes today. We have got some stuff to do as soon as we get off this show today. So this pecan coffee is exactly what I'm talking about when I want a pecan taste. This is great. This is called Madeline's Backyard Pecan. It's the one that Mom sent me, and it tastes just like pecan. Like, I don't even know how to tell you. It's so good like pecan. Like, it really tastes like, you know, the smell of cracking open an actual pecan nut and, like, pulling the meat out and eating it. And you can smell that smell if you grow up in South Texas, and that's what this is. That's what the coffee has to it. So this is great. Thank you, Mom. This is fantastic. Okay. Jason, thank you for joining as well. Good to see you. Let's get right into it. This week we are talking about games that tell stories. I did have a little bit of mail this week, so I'll show that off. I guess I'll probably be wearing this soon in an episode, but my board game design lab, eat, sleep, playtest, repeat, except take care of the sleep, take the sleep out. Just eat, playtest, repeat. This shirt is from Gabe Barrett's Board Game Design Lab. This was part of the Kickstarter that Gabe did, and it went very well, but I am so happy to have a t-shirt. Let's see here. Martin, good to see you. I'll let Daniel and Martin fight it out. Mom says it smelled like a pecan. I got these coffees at the Castorville Pioneer Days at their Landmark Inn gift shop, where she was demonstrating. She says her drop spindle. That's a weaving term for those of you not familiar with weaving. My mom is a very talented fiber artist. So Yuri's talking about the police that are looking for Martin, probably out there in Essen. All right, let's get into it. We've got to go kind of quick this week, like I said. So we're talking about games that tell a story, or attempt to tell a story, I should say. There are two games I want to talk about. One of them is a digital game, and one of them is a tabletop game. I don't know if I want to say that particularly about House of Danger. So Z-Man Games House of Danger is using the choose your own adventure style. And when I say style, let me get some graphics brought up for you guys on the screen over here. Let's see. If I recall, I need a background for this, and then there we go. So the House of Danger, there's the cover of it. It is using the Choose Your Own Adventure book cover style. It is based on the Choose Your Own Adventure books that I read growing up. These are really cool looking products. That's one thing I can say no matter what. John Gilmore, so good to see you. Thank you for joining. Good to see you here with us this week. Daniel is going to Essen. Zach says, is this everyone not going to Essen? Yeah, this is the non-Essen crew right here. I'm definitely not going to Germany. I am going somewhere soon, but I'm not going to Germany. So, James Hudson, so good to see you, and congratulations on your awesome launch, sir. So, let's get into my thoughts on House of Danger. I played this with my family. The three of us just sort of, you can all play together, sort of. You make a decision together. It's just, if you've ever read a choose your own adventure book, this is that in a tabletop experience, but with no extra. There is no extra thing added to this. This is essentially just the pages of the book put into different cards. It's strange. I felt really clunky playing it, to be perfectly honest. Yeah, we're the Essent. That's right, Zach. Daniel says James is headed to Germany. All right. And then Jonathan says, usually Ian watches for us, but I beat him this week. You're giving him a break, John. That's what that is from this face. My mom says, I love the Choose Your Own Adventure books for you and your brothers. We used to get a bunch of them. We had probably, I'd say, 40 different Choose Your Own Adventure books, to the point where I think I'd memorized a few of them the first half, right? I knew exactly how to get to a place where I live in the first half. But in terms of storytelling, this kind of fell flat for me when we played it on the table. I don't know how to explain it here. I'll give you another shot of what's included. So this is sort of what's there. There's a tracker, there's some cards, there's a few cards that lead to a different chain of events. So they've broken down the chain of events. And to me, that's actually worse than having it in a book. Like, it's not as clean. It's not as just go to this page, go to that page. It's search for this card or that card, and you're having to like thumb through all these cards, and then eventually if you unlock the next sort of story arc, there will be different cards you'll thumb to, but it really felt less clean than turn to page X, right? It really felt kind of forced in trying to be this. So the components look cool. The artwork looks amazing. The idea is great, but the execution for me just really fell flat. Like, we didn't feel like we were playing that story. We felt like we were like having to go through this deck of cards more. And it really was interesting to me because I've played some games that are both digital and tabletop that do this better. And I was expecting this to really shine, and unfortunately for me, it didn't. I don't know if other players had a different experience, but I would have also expected this to be like the plan for this was to be a lot more books coming out. And if it was just this same system over and over again, I couldn't see myself really being into another one of these. It just it was very linear. It seemed like there was only one set of correct answers, if that makes sense. And that didn't even seem to be the case in the books to me, at least my recollection of the books as a child. So it really was sort of weird. And maybe not having read the books would have helped. Like, if I didn't have that, preconceived experience, that might have been a big part of this. But it was really, really, I don't know how to say it. I was disappointed in the experience overall. I was not looking forward to busting this back out and continuing it after we played it. I want to finish it, but it's definitely not one that's got me like chomping at the bit to go back. So Alex said there was a book series around the same time as Choose Your Own Adventure that was almost like an RPG. You had to track your health and items you got as you went through the choice of the book. I had one, but you had to carry your inventory through the stories of the series. I love that. So there's a game called Forward Against Darkness that's really cool, that's somewhat similar to that. And HRPG, the role-playing game based on business cards that Ian and I are working on, is somewhat like that as well. My mom says it would probably be a better video game with automatic switch to the page. Something like that I think exists, but I agree. That's Zach says, have you tried the Choose Your Own Adventure graphic novels? I haven't done those yet. Andrew, my development partner in Yanaguana Games, is the one who bought those, and he said they were not what he thought, but they were interesting. So I look forward to trying those out at some point. Alex says Lone Wolf was the name of that RPG. So very, very cool. Van Ryder Games Graphic Adventures. Geez, get it right. Tell him, Daniel. Crusoe's Crew 1 to 5 co-op player is something coming to Kickstarter, says Yuri. I think that's probably along this same vein. So I'm not saying this is a bad game. It just was different than what I thought it would be, and it does feel very linear. Like, you're not going to have a lot of decision making, which I thought you were going to have. It was going to be a lot more of a choice. It felt, maybe it's aimed at kids like it was when I was reading it as well, which, at this point, of course, I should be past that. I should have a better cognitive recognition of the different things that are going on in terms of, a paragraph leading me to a good or bad potential outcome. So maybe that's part of the experience there as well. But yeah, I just was really, it was unfortunate that this fell flat because I had really high hopes for it. Like, I was really hoping to see one of these games games just grab me, and so then I'd be like, okay, all of the choose your own adventure games, I'm going to be getting into those. I like that kind of thing, but I just can't see myself getting into another one of these, and it's hard to go back to this one because it wasn't that fun. Now, alternatively, the digital game we're going to talk about this week knocks it out of the park, in my opinion. It's probably one of the better digital games that's come out that works on an app or works on a computer. It generally works on any platform, and it does the same sort of thing, and it's trying to tell a story, and that's Reigns. This particular one is called Reigns Her Majesty. So let me get you some footage of Reigns Her Majesty. But essentially, all this is a binary choice of one thing or another thing over and over again as a ruler of a kingdom, and you've got 4 different tracks at the top for the church, the people, the army, and then the money. And those are all things that you have to do some sort of, you know what, that's real loud, I just realized too. Let's take that down a bit. Sorry about that. So all of those things are incredibly, incredibly important to ruling your kingdom, and none of them can be too high or too low. If they run out, of course, if you run out of money, you're going to just collapse, which I think is what my kingdom ends up doing here. So if you alternatively let the church gain too much power, they will overthrow the throne. And I think it's really, really difficult. Yeah, the sound should be fixed now. I hope that it's so sorry about that. Usually I fix that prior. I have been so busy, so busy this week. I see the sound loud. I hope it's fixed. I fixed it preemptively. It's all the way down now. I've gotten it out of the way. So thank you again for bearing with me. Again, the questions you're being asked are things like, do you want to punish this village full of people for talking poorly about the crown? And if you do that, of course, people are going to like you less. But if you don't do it, then potentially your army is going to like you less. And you've got to balance all these different questions and the 4 gauges that you have up above what you're doing. So I think at one point here I just sort of started trying to end so that we could finish it up. But yeah, it's really an incredible just narrative that is created every single time. And when you finish, you generally they overthrow you and they've killed you, yes. So your heir takes over, or the next person, the successor, takes over. And what you do is you go through another story. And I've played a whole bunch of just the first Reigns, and I don't think I've ever played the exact same story through twice. It's always this really incredible sort of fun mix of somewhat familiar storylines, but then they take a twist that you weren't expecting, and you really get this wonderful, crafted experience and narrative out of it, out of just these little binary yes or no questions sometimes, and a little paragraph above them with a tiny graphic. I mean, you can see each one of these cards is one graphic. Sometimes it'll be the same person comes back, so it's even the same graphic being used over and over to say that this person's talking to you. And there, after running out of money, the hounds turned on me and they ate me. So then I could start another game, and I think that that's really just an incredible way to tell a story, but also a really fun way to think about, getting a different experience out of a very similar product over and over and over again. I think that I kind of expected more of that out of House of Danger, and maybe that's because I'm spoiled by all the awesome digital games that sort of offer similar experiences to that. So Daniel's got the king eating a burger there. Yeah, exactly. So eventually we all get to some point where we see our end, no matter if we're a king or whatever. And I like that aspect of the game as well. Is there's no infinite run that you're going to go on in this kingdom. You're going to have X amount of years, and that's going to be it, and then you're dead. So I like that. I think it's a really, really realistic and fun game that does a story narrative quickly, fast, over and over again. So let's see here. Let's get into the media I want to talk about this week, because we have about 10 minutes left. I know that is short this week, but it is busy right now. So, all right, Game the Game. And this is on Geek and Sundry with Becca Scott. Let's see. My mom says, "You killed my father, prepare to die." I agree. That is one of my favorite movies and one of my favorite lines from a movie. So, Yuri says, "Go do your push-ups, Daniel, after that burger." That's right. Daniel, I commend that. A lot of my friends in the board game industry are doing 22 push-ups a day to bring awareness to the 22 combat veterans who commit suicide every day. And that's something that I think is really, really, really commendable by a lot of my friends in the industry. I know that James is doing that, Daniel's doing that, Gavin Brown's doing that. Those are the three I know. I'm sure there's a bunch more. So thank you guys for bringing awareness to that. Very, very cool as well. Daniel says, if you choose to eat the burger, turn to page 5. Otherwise, turn to page 7. I love it. Brad, you're never late when you show up to Coffee Chat. This is a nice casual hangout. You're welcomed in, and just join in. Get right into it. I appreciate you being here. Thanks, man. So, Game the Game. If you guys haven't seen this, it's not your regular just like, oh, this is the game, this is what it does, boom, on to the next thing. These are sort of more in-depth tutorials. Think like Heavy Cardboard, Edward Oller style, where you're going to get a number of folks who essentially who are going to play the game, who are going to show you their strategies by talking it out, but also Becca Scott's going to give you like a breakdown of how the games work, and I really enjoy that about Game the Game. Becca Scott's a very energetic, fun host as well. Reminds me a whole lot of Felicia Day, who I miss being on Geek and Sundry, so it's a great, great mix. Sorry, this coffee's good, but I've had a lot of coffee this morning. Yeah, Stephanie says Game the Game is good, but very strong personalities. I agree. I think that they're definitely trying to give you an entertainment value as well, so that's a lot of fun. But I've learned a lot about different games that I've wanted to play that are maybe a little bit heavier. And the reason that I think that it's so good is that it has that extra entertainment value, right? So you can giggle along a little bit while you're also picking up those little pieces of information. So it's, again, really fun, really clever show. It doesn't need a ton of exposure because it's so, it's on Geek and Sundry and it's a big show. But if you're somebody who's watching it, you're not aware of it, you should definitely go check it out. And that's, kind of like when I gave a shout out to BGG. Most folks probably know what Board Game Geek is, but a lot of, folks might not. So why not mention it? And that's the same thing with Geek and Sundry, but specifically Game the Game. If you want to find out and sort of see how the interactions play out in real time on a game, watch that, and then you can sort of really see what the game plays like and what it feels like at the table. So, I'm so sorry. Yeah, I guess that's not really fair, is it? I've done it plenty of times, and then Daniel just says, one day Becca Scott will be mentioned without Felicia Day being mentioned, but today is not that day. That is correct. It is not. I brought them both up, didn't I? So, let's move on because we have like 7 or 8 minutes left. I have got to get some stuff done today. I want to talk a little bit about Deepwater Games. And so this morning I was thinking about what I was going to do and talking about marketing and what it was going to be. And then I got an invite from Nolan Nasser, the one and only Nolan Nasser, the famous artist Nolan Nasser, about Welcome 2's upcoming launch for its Kickstarter. Now, I already own Welcome 2. You probably see it right there over my shoulder. Like, it's right there. I have it. But the thing about it is they're doing a Kickstarter that's got products that I don't have in that box. So as a Kickstarter backer, I might, even though I own that, want to get on board with that, right? And get a hold of the new playmat or some of the new cool stuff that they've got coming out for it. So, all that being said, I got an invite to a launch event. And I don't know if I've talked about this before. I may have, but it is definitely worth reiterating, is that it takes very little time for you as a Kickstarter creator to make a launch event and invite people to it. It is something that you should definitely do, and there are ways to do it. Now, I do remember I have talked about this because there's ways to do it that are different. And Nolan's done a relatively traditional style, which is totally cool. Hey, come on to this thing. We're all going to be launching on this day, and I think there's some information in the group about that. I think it might have been James's. I really can't remember who did it, so I don't want to give too much credit. But someone had a launch event where they had videos planned for every day and giveaways planned in their launch event leading up to the launch and all those sorts of things. And that, in my opinion, is how you should do the launch event, is really, really find, a lunch event sounds good too. I could definitely go for a lunch event. But a launch event should have lots of content in it. Just like a lunch event, you should have lots of good things to eat. A launch event should have tons of stuff. I mean, you should have videos of what's, people playing the game and having fun, giveaways leading up to your launch, things planned for the launch. Like on that day, we're going to do this, this, and this. And I think it was James's. I really do. Now that the more I think about it, I can't remember which game. James Hudson and Druid City, but they had one where it was just a really interactive launch event on Facebook, and I think that's a really cool idea. I'd like to hear ideas that people have on other ways to do a launch event. Right, like on Facebook, you set up your launch event. What are the cool things that you think you could do or that you'd want to see as a consumer too? Right, like what would you take part in a launch event? I know watching videos is easy, but what would you do with, like 2 weeks of time prior to a launch? What kind of things would you throw out there? That's one of the things I'm really interested in right now in terms of how people are prepping for their launches and doing that sort of thing. And this just brought it to my mind and getting this invite. Again, I think Welcome To is a fantastic game, so it's going to do real well on that. But it would be really fun to see a fun launch event, brought up in the next few days prior to their launch. It's just a really, really fun thing to do. Yeah. Daniel says James Hudson killed with the Grim launch giveaways. It was like one every couple hours. And that's the kind of thing I'm talking about, like engaging and being really present with your audience during that first launch. I think leading up to that, building an audience and then being there on that day really shows a dedication to your project. It's not like I'm not saying that other creators aren't. I'm just saying it shows an outward dedication to your project that other people can see. It's tangible. They can feel it. They can grasp onto it, and that's important for your backers. They're going to feel a lot more comfortable knowing that you're there running giveaways, shooting videos, doing fun, silly things based on your project. Like that kind of stuff, I think especially the first 48 hours is incredibly important. So, all right. Yeah, Yuri says my first launch event was Roxley with Dice Throne 2. Yeah, I get invited to a lot on Facebook that are, hey, come be part of this. But the ones that stand out are the ones where there's some events like built into it, and you really use that space well and cleverly. And I think that's what I'm going to think about over the next week is how to use that space cleverly. So, yeah, and Daniel says my launch for Mechanisms is a VIP black tie event. Well, very, very nice. But yeah, let's see. Daniel, I'd like to see something really inventive out of the launch event for Mechanisms. I know you guys are having fun with that campaign, but I think that would be, if you set a standard for a new fun way to do a launch event, I think that'd be appropriate. So thank you guys so much for visiting this week. I really, really appreciate it. I am sorry to have to cut it off quickly, but I've got another meeting starting in minutes. So I will see you guys next week. If you are enjoying a cup of coffee, enjoy it. If you're playing a game, have a wonderful game and have a wonderful time. If you're working on a game, move it forward. Some way, shape, or form. Just move it forward. All right. Y'all have a great week. Thanks again. We'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye.